So here's the thing. I have always been fascinated by cults, or more specifically, cult leaders. There's just something so interesting about them, how one person with a slick tongue can convince seemingly normal people to do very not normal things. They prey upon weak and vulnerable people, promising them family, or answers, or healing, or anything along those lines, when their actual intentions are far more sinister. However, unfortunately, given the type of content I make, I can't really talk about that too much. I make videos on weird, wacky internet bullshit. I can't exactly just suddenly gear shift and start talking about Jonestown out of nowhere. If only there was a cult that also tied into wacky internet bullshit. Wait a second! Mormon! Spirit Science is an online cult started by Jordan Dunkus, also known as Jordan D, also known as River Jordan, also known as Your New Messiah. The best way I can summarize Spirit Science is that it's exactly what you think would happen if a Newgrounds animator woke up one day, started sniffing glue, and said, fuck it, let's start a cult. Jordan and his followers, who I'm going to call Spirit Scientists because I think that's funny, have gotten into some real wacky shenanigans, as well as some truly awful stuff, but that's for later. Just remember, you all voted for this. So get comfy, grab your crystals, and burn some incest as I tell you the story of Spirit Science, the internet's insane cult. As I said previously, Jordan D got his start on Newgrounds in 2005. Oh god, I have to explain what Newgrounds is. Newgrounds was, during its heyday, an incredibly popular website that focused on user-created art, videos, and flash games. It was actually the first massive website to focus on user-created content, predating YouTube by years. It's definitely not as prominent in modern internet culture as it was back then. Hell, I doubt it'll ever reach those heights again, but it is still a decently popular site for that sort of content. And it's not like it's completely forgotten, it is where Friday Night Funkin' and ENA came from, so clearly it still does have a level of cultural relevancy. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, this fucking guy. Jordan's initial contributions were certainly of their time.
Are you Dante, son of Sparta?
Yes.
Good. Think fast!
Let's rock.
Hey, don't you laugh, this was the digital circus of its era. Jordan would create a variety of animations, however his most popular creation was Patchman, a blue patch thing that he would animate going on wacky hijinks. Except that was a lie! Jordan didn't create Patchman, a friend of his, Andy Koenig, did. The only reason why I bring this up is because I truly wonder what Andy thinks about what happened next, because, technically this is partially his fault. You see, Patchman would essentially go on to be Jordan's mascot, propelling him to relative fame. Jordan was very much a B-tier Newgroundser, definitely had followers, but just wasn't quite at the height of the A and S tiers of the time. But everything changed for Jordan in 2010. See, according to him, he was raised non-denominationally. Despite his parents being religious, they did not want to impose their beliefs on their son, and instead allowed him to figure out what he believed in on his own. In other words, they're hippies who are directly responsible for everything that happens next. Jordan would begin what I can only describe as a spiritual quest in 2010, seeking out answers and trying to find what he truly believes in. He would research spirituality, visit different churches, all that crap. His search for answers would come to an end when he found a book called The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life by a man named Gerudo Melchizedek. Gerudo claimed that the ancient Egyptian god Thoth appeared before him one day and blessed him with knowledge of the secrets of the universe and sacred geometry. No, I'm not joking, he did say that. Also, for the record, he was not born with that name. Melchizedek is an ancient biblical character from the Old Testament who's obscure, but does have a lot of reverence as an early member of the church. His real name is Bernard Perona, which I'm going to call him going forward because I think the name Bernard is funny. Also, why the fuck would you change your name to Drunvalo? That name is even worse than Bernard. Oh shit, a storm's brewing. This door is supposed to remain closed, god damn it. You're not supposed to know the secret behind that door. The secrets shall remain. You're teased with it. You couldn't see what was all the way in there. All right, where the fuck was I? Jordan's life would be forever changed by Bernard's work, going absolutely full nutcase, reading all of his books, and becoming a devout follower of Bernard's teachings. Jordan knew he had to spread the word. He wouldn't just become a follower of Bernard, he would become his most outspoken prophet. And he was going to use Patchman to do it. And so, on April 11th, 2011, the first episode of Spirit Science was released on Newgrounds.
Can you feel it? A sort of anticipation growing stronger and stronger? Another way of putting it is time is speeding up. I've heard that discussion for a while now.
You didn't ask for this. You didn't choose this. Yet you're a Nazi.
The Spirit Science series was, for its time, rather successful, as he was actually able to convince a decent amount of his following to hear him out, as it were. Before long, Jordan and the Spirit Scientists would completely break containment and begin to spread out to other websites like Facebook or even their own website, SpiritScienceCentral.com. What the fuck is going on with this cursor? Here you can not only learn about China's secret psychic army, but also buy incredibly overpriced spiritual bullshit. $75 for a pack of cards! Home. There are no products in this collection. Well, you got the picture for it. Oh, look at these reviews. Oh, no. Oh, who the fuck are you? It's around this time that Jordan would undergo his first big stunt for his Spirit Scientists, breaking into a fucking hospital.
I've infiltrated a hospital to find out more about how this place works. I want to know what modern society knows about healing.
Yes, this is a real thing that happened in our real world. Jordan D., leader of the Spirit Scientists, broke into a hospital, dressed in full scrubs, to figure out what modern medicine looks like. He recorded himself doing this, as well as doctors doing their job, including fucking surgery. Now, to be fair, it is argued that Jordan may have actually gotten permission to enter the hospital, but I find it hard to believe that the doctors would be okay with him recording an opened man. It also just makes him look crazy, not helped by the fact that his first observation is...
My first observation was the incredible lack of crystals.
This fucking guy. You think Jordan has a J.O. crystal? Jordan would also make liberal use of psychedelic drugs, including ayahuasca, going on multiple retreats where he claimed that he was given visions of the secrets of the universe and all that bullshit. He would go on to have other outrageous stunts, like claiming that while on one of these ayahuasca retreats, Jesus Christ himself appeared before Jordan and told him that Emma Watson, famous actress Emma Watson, was his soulmate and also the female incarnation of Jesus Christ. Again, yes, he said this.
Because Jesus, I was talking to him and he was like, well, what do you want to know? He's like, you know me so well already. What more do you want in this moment? And I was like, I don't know. I just thought I'd call you in because everyone else was doing it. To declare by the power vested in me that Emma Watson is the embodiment of Christ in woman.
I had to borrow footage from a different YouTuber because Jordan deleted this video, so everyone go watch Just Jake, unless he's a horrible person that got canceled. I don't know who this guy is. I'm gonna assume he's good though. I have faith in people. Oh, it's getting dark out. Yeah, this storm is really rolling in. Thoth must be angered by my mocking of his disciple. I must get through this quickly before he strikes me down. This is what Jordan is known for, just weird, random, out-of-context bullshit that he just says sometimes. But something that rarely gets any focus, outside of a couple of specific elements, is the actual mythology of spirit science. Which just begs the question, what do spirit scientists actually believe? Hello, I'm Professor Strongman. I'm joined today with Professor Rascal. I understand that his views on differential human evolution are controversial to say the least and very hate-filled to say the most, but he's also the only person with a doctorate who agreed to speak with me at this seminar. Today we'll be breaking down Spirit Science. That's right, I will be breaking down the entire mythology of spirit science, mostly. What the fuck was that? There will be parts that I cut out for time-sake purposes. We're just focusing on the necessary stuff that you need to know in order to understand spirit science lore. Alright? Let's begin. This is a scuffed production. This, oh, you can kind of see it right there. This thing is currently being held up by a couple of power drills and a jar of screws. In the beginning, there was a void with only one thing in it. Spirit, as it's called. Now, the thing about being in a void is that you can't really do anything while you're in there. You kind of have to just exist and that's it. But you see, Spirit wanted to do more. It wanted to exist. It wants to experience things. So, what it did is it thought. And in that moment, it created this is going to be a terrible circle, by the way, a sphere around itself. And that sphere of consciousness created a whole bunch of stuff. Not everything, but a whole bunch of stuff that was in there now, both physical and ideas and all that sort of stuff. Would you, do you have something you'd like to add, Professor Rascal? No, I suppose he doesn't. We'll just allow him to do his business. Now, when this spirit, which Jordan D calls the creator, did this, it didn't do it in a vacuum. It actually created a sound. Oh, shit. Professor Rascal has to go get some whiskey. He'll be right back later. But when this happened, it created a sound. Ka. By the way, I do have terrible handwriting, so my apologies for that. But anyways, the creator, yes, I know, the creator experienced everything within this, right? And he was like, wow, I want to do that again. So what he did is he moved directly up to the very edge of the first sphere, and then he did it again. And that made the sound of Ra. Then he went down this way and he did it again, which made Ya. Then another one, this isn't to scale, by the way, these are all supposed to be perfect circles, but another one like there, which made Sa. This one here made Ta. This one over here made Ha. And another one over here made La. Now that is the universe, but it's not just this set. It continues to expand outward basically forever, but that's effectively what our universe is. Now, let's jump forward a little bit. Do I not have yellow? What the fuck? Okay, I guess we're... So then we got the Sun, Mercury, Venus is Mars. And you might be confused by its color, but don't worry, that'll make sense later. And between Venus and Mars, there was another planet comprised entirely of water. That is horrible. Hang on. So like I said, between Mars and Venus, there was another planet called Nibiru, which was made entirely of water. What happened next? Well, a planet called Tiamat, oh, and its moon, we'll do that, suddenly appeared in the solar system one day, and just crashed directly into fucking Nibiru. Now, a bunch of cool stuff happened when this happened. First of all, the two planets combined together, which gave us a planet of both land and water, and also created the asteroid belt as well. How the fuck did those asteroids get from this to the other side of Mars? Don't question it. We'll talk about that never. Now, over time, evolution took place. Maybe a couple of birds up there. I don't know. But what matters is that at one point, there were these people that just kind of popped up. Proto-humans, similar to Neanderthals or under-evolved apes, basically. Oh, so then humans evolved naturally after that. No, dipshit, we gotta talk about the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki were an advanced alien race that came to Earth, did it say? It doesn't say. But they came to Earth one day. Why? Simple. They wanted gold, and Earth had a lot of gold on it. But they didn't want to actually do the work to get the gold. So here's what they did. This guy right here is Anil, he's the leader of the Anunnaki, and this guy here is Enki, and he is the head scientist of the Anunnaki. And so instead of actually doing the work to mine the gold, what they decided to do was this. This was their grand plan. They're going to take a couple of these humans, bring them onto their ship, and then perform genetic experiments on them to give them the brain capacity to work their mining equipment to then mine the gold. So they bring two of them on and attach their little brain stuff to the humans and try and increase their intelligence, but accidentally, what the fuck was it? Unlocked human consciousness is how he puts it. Basically, they gain sentience. And now their minds are blown because they understand things. And by the way, their names were Adam and Eve. They then sent them right back on down. And then, of course, the workforce expanded over time, and we got more humans. And they're all doing the gold work together, alright? Because we were now sentient and partially psychic, we could communicate with the Anunnaki. And this pissed off Anil, because we were all like, we don't want to be slaves. We don't want to just gather gold for people. We want to exist, and we don't like this. And again, that annoyed Anil. But luckily for him, there was going to be a solution that I forgot to draw on this map. We had polar ice caps. And the Anunnaki were able to use their scientific knowledge to say, hey, this stuff is about to melt due to polar shifts. We were basically going out of an ice age, and that was going to flood the Earth and kill all of the people on it. But Anil, nope, not Anil, Enki said, hey, I don't want these things I created to die. I want them to live. So what he did is he went down. So all the Anunnaki fucked off, and this guy made his boat. We'll make it purple. He and a bunch of people got on it, and then as promised, the ice caps melted. Whoa, up there goes all the land. And there goes everyone and everything that wasn't on the boat, except for fish and birds. But don't worry, it wasn't just people on the boat. That's right, our good friend Enki decided to stick around after all to help humans get settled after this whole situation sorts itself out. And eventually it did. Because you see, what happened next is a whole bunch of island chains popped up. It's called the Archipelago of Lemuria. And there were some other continents around too. But the main one is Lemuria. That's where all the people went to after the flood happened.
Wait a second, strong man.
Uh-oh. Looks like Mr. Mainstream Academia is trying to rain on our parade.
Wasn't Lemuria originally a proposed landmass connecting Africa to Madagascar? To explain how the lemurs got there, prior to our understanding of continental drift. Why is it now suddenly an island chain?
Shut up, bitch. But yes, the islands of Lemuria. Let me draw the people. So now all of humanity was living on Lemuria, and before we go on, we have to establish a couple of things that will be important later. This is the brain, and it's split into two halves. The left part of the brain, stage left, female. And this is the part of the brain that works with all of the cool spiritual stuff. Ooh, look at that. And the right side of the brain... Oh, holy shit, what the fuck? Oh, it caused the drill to fall. God damn it. That's why I gotta be careful with this. And the right side of the brain is male, which focuses on more physical stuff, like math and reason and logic and all that sort of thing. So, just so you know, that's important to know. Now, species are naturally... Oh, hello. Professor Rascal's back, everyone. Do you have anything you want to say here? Okay, he's just gonna fuck around with his lab coat. So, at this point in time, humanity was predominantly a left-brain species, meaning that we were mostly spiritual and female. Not biologically female, that's important to clarify. Just simply spiritually, mentally female. And again, you can't really think of this in terms of gender. This is all just a completely unrelated thing. Don't worry about it. Is this even watchable? Now, as I said, humanity at the time was a predominantly female-brained species. Very spiritual. We focused a lot on all of that. We were all very chill. And, yes. Every time he comes back, I get distracted because I think he actually has something important to add. But then I remember he's a fucking cat. So we were just kind of spiritual beings, just kind of hanging out, chilling. We were all having a good time. But then, every 26,000 years, this is an important thing, because of equinox and the planet Earth and all this other dumb shit, humans undergo what is called a consciousness shift. That's what it's called. It's called a consciousness shift, where we go up a level in consciousness, basically. So, like, we started off on level 1 when we were just being experimented on, and I believe we were about to move up to level 3. So that's good to know. However, when this happened, this caused the islands of Lemuria to sink into the ocean. Don't ask why, I don't have an answer for you. And so humanity scattered amongst the earth. Some went over here, or some went over there, or some probably went up here somewhere, I don't know. But they were scattered and left to wander the earth forever. Now you may think that this is where the mythology ends. No, bitch, we haven't even gotten to the Martian Wars yet. Because shortly after Lemuria sank and everyone dispersed, another landmass appeared. Behold, Atlantis! Now let's go back to the diagram over here really quick, because at this point in time, there were two types of humans. There were the regular, basic bitch humans, and then there were the Nakal. The Nakals were basically humans fully realized in that point in time. They were hyper-spiritual, far more advanced than the average person, and as such, they were sort of the leaders of the world at that time. And they all decided, you know what? We're gonna live on Atlantis, because that is the spiritual center of the earth, because of some shit with a snake. So, here's what they did. The Nakals all went to this little island up here, and they all sat in a big circle and projected the image of the Tree of Life. I think we can you'll remember this part, right? This will be important later, but just keep this in mind. Now, in the very center of each of these points of the Tree of Life, they had what was called a spiritual vortex, which instinctively brought life towards it. We all began to flood in, but because we were still a primitive species at the time, we didn't have all of the understanding that we needed, so we actually missed these two spots. We couldn't pick them up. So, this ended up causing a bit of an opening for other life forms to appear, because it's this spiritual vortex calling in life, so, of course, other life is going to appear to fit into it. Now, if you don't know anything about spirit science, I want you to take a guess. Who were the first people to show up that filled this spot right here? Take a wild guess. Who filled this spot right here on the Tree of Life on Atlantis?
The first race were the Hebrews, coming from our future. Thoth says that they came from off-planet, but we don't know where exactly.
Time-traveling Jews from the future. You did not guess that. Now, why did the Jews have to time travel? Well, that's simple. You see, remember that whole brain thing I just erased? I'll put it back up really quick. I didn't need to erase that yet, but whatever, I'll just superimpose. Well, you see, the Jews in the future were only leveling up the right male physical side of the brain. They weren't focusing too much on the spiritual side of the brain. And because of that, they were unable to jump up to the next step of evolution. So, what they ended up having to do was go sent back in time and have to basically redo everything to eventually get to the point where their spiritual side was enlightened enough that they could then ascend. Right there. Despite what you may think from the Jews appearing in a weird pseudo-cult, they actually were pretty helpful. Because they were so advanced with the physical side of their brain, they had knowledge of all of these technologies that we didn't at the time, and they shared it with the rest of humanity. So that's a nice thing, I suppose. Helped us advance a little bit. Oh, no, hold on. I'm just remembering. I think I put this in wrong. I think the Jews filled this spot up here. There. Well, we'll get into why I'm pretty sure about that later. Anyway, so the next group of people were the Martians. Okay, something else important to note. Remember how the whole universe and all of reality is just spirit and thought kind of combining together and all that, whatever the fuck that was supposed to mean? Well, because every living thing has spirit, and they have the ability to think, if they want to, they can cut themselves off from the universal consciousness and effectively go off to make their own universe if they so desire. However, the problem is that this has never worked out before, and this is called the Lucifer experiment. This represents the universal consciousness. This is just one of the branches, that's one of the spirits, and what they do is they just kind of go like this, and there you go. They're now untethered from this universe, and they can do whatever they want. But the problem is that's not how it works, I guess. Because whenever that happens, it always fails, and it inevitably just makes everyone of that society just a bunch of massive assholes, I guess. So remember how I drew Mars as green? Well, at that time, Mars was very similar to Earth. It had water and land and life on it, of course. But once the Martians performed the Lucifer experiment and they all became assholes, they basically completely destroyed their planet. But before they did, a whole bunch of them decided, you know what, we're going to escape. And it just so happened that about that same time, this vortex was open, so they just went whoop right on over there. And then Mars was destroyed and turned into the planet we know now. Now you see, because the Martians were a bunch of assholes, they obviously wanted to be in charge of everything. So, thus began the Great Atlantean-Martian War, where the Atlanteans, the Nakals, and the Jews all teamed up together to fight the Martians, and it was actually not that great of a war. I just like the name But yes, the war was short-lived. The Martians eventually surrendered and said, alright, I guess we'll just live with you guys now. But you see, that didn't mean that they were happy about it. In fact, there was some huge animosity between the Atlanteans and the Martians. A whole lot of racism, none of them got along, and over time, these guys slowly wormed their way into power using their higher intellect and even more advanced technology than the Jews. Okay, here, Mars destroyed itself. Oh, I almost forgot. I almost forgot something incredibly important. Okay, so, you see this symbol right here. You think that's the Star of David? No, that's called a Merkaba. This is important. Oh god, how do I even explain what a Merkaba is? Okay, so, a Merkaba, like, he describes it as a tool that all living beings have, but only beings of higher psychic awareness are able to activate, which allows them to do cool things like travel through space and alter physical reality around them. I guess think of it kind of like the Force, but like a thing. It's really hard to explain. But yeah, it's like a cool tool, a psychic tool that we all have, including us, but not including the Martians, because they are stupid. When they cut themselves off from the universal conscious, that also meant that they could no longer activate their Merkaba, so they had to use synthetic Merkabas. This will be incredibly important later. That's why I had to stop this all and get into that. Okay, I hope you're taking notes, by the way. This will be on the test. You know what? Fuck it. I'm just now realizing this. It's going to be really fun. I am actually going to make a Google Doc test. I'm going to put it in the description of this video. Spur of the moment, just decided to do this. It'll be a spirit science test. Anyone who takes it can test their knowledge on spirit science, and I guess I'll grade you all and let you know whoever got the best score, alright? You only get one try, though. Don't be a cheap bastard. So anyways, now you may be wondering why we decided to leave the Martians here, and that's because we were simply a naive, primitive species. And Jordan uses the very unfortunate metaphor of we were a 14-year-old girl being taken advantage of by a 60 or 70-year-old man.
When this happened on our evolutionary path, we now had the planetary consciousness of a 14-year-old girl. The Martians were an incredibly male species, and also very old, so what you had was a 14-year-old girl being taken over by a 60 or 70-year-old man.
That's a very interesting metaphor there, Jordan. 26,000 years ago, at the last consciousness shift, we actually went downwards in consciousness because a small piece of Atlantis just broke off and sunk into the sea. We don't know why. Where the fuck is the green? So for no real reason, or for a reason we don't understand, this part of Atlantis just back into the ocean. Because that little piece broke off, everyone started to freak out because, oh my god, is this thing gonna sink into the ocean too? We were just scared, okay? We didn't want this to be Lemuria all over again. We just fucking settled down. We just fought a war over this place. Because that fear happened during our consciousness shift, it actually ended up leading to us, like I said, de-evolving and losing our psychic powers to see into the future. But then everything changed 16,000 to 13,000 years ago. We wanted to give a bit of a loose estimate here, we're not entirely sure when suddenly, a meteor began flying towards Earth. Now, the Martians initially wanted to use their cool technology to just blow it up, and that was the end of it. But the Nicals, the smug bastards, were able to surmise that this was not just any meteor, it was of, and I'm going to draw exactly how Jordan D does in his video, divine origin, meaning that they had to let this meteor hit the Earth. Now, the Martians didn't want that. They almost fought another war over it, but eventually they said, alright, fuck it, fine. You smug assholes, we'll let you do it, alright? So the meteor goes, woo, bam, hits around here, right? And, where is it? South Carolina. Yeah, Atlantis is right off the coast of America, by the way. Now, like I said, it misses Atlantis, which is good, but a couple of pieces fly off, and some of them hit a couple of Martian cities around here, which is why I knew that the Martians had to settle in this part of Atlantis because, like I said, they had to be close to where the asteroid hit. This pissed off the Martians. In fact, I'm gonna add angry eyebrows to the Martians. They're that mad. The Martians were angry. They wanted to blow up the meteor, they let it hit, and now a whole bunch of them are dead. So now they're like, fuck this shit, we're gonna take over the world. So here's what they did. They went to around here, and they decide to try and build another synthetic Merkaba. However, because it's been so long since they'd done this, the actual knowledge to do this properly was lost to time, and this Merkaba started spiraling out of control. So the Merkaba started spiraling all out of control, right? Which is bad news, because when you have an out-of-control Merkaba, shit goes crazy. What ended up happening was it ripped. It caused a rip in the dimensional levels, specifically the lower ones, leading to a whole bunch of one-dimensional and two-dimensional spirits to start flooding into the world, right? Oh no. They started attaching to people, and a whole bunch of bad shit started happening. People were getting sick, people were dying, everything sucked for a while. Now at this time, the priest king of Atlantis was a guy with a beak called Thoth. Why'd he have a beak? I don't know, he just did, shut up. And he was the leader of the Nakals. So he and the Nakals decided to try and fix this mess the best they could. They ended up all pooling their magic together, not magic, they ended up pooling their magic together and sealed up the vortex and sent all of the lower dimensional beings back to where they're supposed to be. And also, by the way, this Merkaba is apparently still around. This island sunk into the ocean and is now the center of the Bermuda Triangle. And that's why the Bermuda Triangle is so fucked up, by the way. Anyways, but despite their best efforts, the Earth was still spiraling out of control. People were still getting sick and dying and all this other bad stuff. So, without anywhere to turn, because again, they were just a very primitive species at the time, the Nakals and Thoth just prayed to higher powers. And they reached 11th and 12th dimensional entities, which Jordan D draws as the Justice League, because according to him, they are just so beyond our understanding, he can't think of anything else to draw them as. And you know what? He is my new messiah, so I will follow suit. So anyways, these guys, like, reach down, and they see what's going on Earth, and they go, oh, fuck! You guys are screwed! So, remember how I said that humanity was a level, I think it was 3 consciousness on the left side, female side of the brain? Well, because of all of this bullshit, they would have to effectively completely restart. So, first thing that's gonna happen is we're gonna shoot all the way back down to level 1 consciousness. Secondly, we're going to go from female to male. Complete, fresh restart. Thirdly, we are only going to have, according to them, 13,000 years to achieve something called Christ consciousness, which I believe is level 3 consciousness, which is where we were when this shit first happened. So we had to get back to where we were in only 13,000 years. The problem is that this can take over 100,000 years. And according to Jordan D, this has never happened before in all of the universe, ever. So we had to do the impossible. But luckily, we had Thoth on our side, baby. Thoth was a wise king, and he figured out exactly what we have to do in order to survive. So what happened? Well, he got his friends, Ra and Aragot, and he devised a plan. And this is where we have to get into another long-winded description of some bullshit that Jordan just made up. I mean, the secrets of the universe, of course. Gonna take a quick second here just to bring up the fact that I put a lot of fucking work into this one, so if you guys could, I don't know, leave a comment praising the almighty Thoth or something along those lines, then like and do the other thing, that would be just darn swell. You see, every species has what's called a consciousness grid, which, oh no, god damn it. Every species has what's called a consciousness grid, which completely encircles the planet, like a ring, basically. And it goes outward for every layer that we have. So because we're level 1 consciousness right now, we only have one layer. God damn it. So because we're only level 1 consciousness, we only have one layer. But we need to get to level 3. And here's what we were going to do. Thoth and his friends Ra and Aragot were going to create a synthetic Christ consciousness grid. Yes, that's a real word that I just said. Well, I guess a couple of words, whatever. You see, by creating a bunch of pyramids with a bunch of sacred geometry in them, we'll just do, there, all placed in the specific exact points that they needed to be, they would be able to create a synthetic Christ consciousness grid, which completely encircled the planet, and basically helped push us along faster than it would be possible. Basically, we have the grid that's already supposed to be here. It's kind of dragging us upwards, whether we want to or not. So like I said, Thoth went and made the pyramids, which were built from the top down, by the way. And underneath, specifically the Sphinx, hold on. Underneath the Sphinx, buried way below, there was a big room, right? This is important to keep in mind, by the way, what I'm about to tell you. And in that room down there, there is what Jordan and Thoth describe as an airship. Basically, it's a flat disc, right? From above is a circle that is about the size of 2 city blocks, but is only 3 atoms thick, except for a symbol that's kind of like that in the center of it, which is 5 atoms thick. Ooh. Now, this airship, as he calls it, is basically the Earth's defense mechanism. It is natural. It comes with the spirit of the Earth, which, by the way, is a living thing. So, this is just kind of something that's always been here ever since we have been around. And basically how it works is, if Earth is ever in a crisis, someone pure of spirit can get, which you could draw a generic black, into it, activate their Merkaba, boom, 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 and take flight with it, and proceed to do whatever they need in order to save humanity. And very important to note that this apparently happened as recently as the 1980s, 1986, I believe. The Greys were invading us, or were causing a stink, because something happened with the government. I don't know, it was a whole thing, he doesn't get into it. But the Greys were invading, but a Peruvian woman was able to ascend to the next plane of reality, get to the airship, get into it, fly above the Earth, and then use it to make the Greys sick whenever they were on Earth, but not when they were off Earth, so they all just had to leave and fuck off. And that's just a cool little thing he just throws in there. Isn't that swell? So then, just as they were approaching the next consciousness shift, which would set us all back to 0, Thoth got in that airship, flew up here, picked up all of the Nakals, and then they all went to the pyramids of Giza. Landed it like that. And because of their position, Thoth, Ra, Aragot, and the Nakals were all saved from having to undergo the reset process. Don't worry about how that happened. It just did. Okay, we're good. Yes, Professor Rascal, what would you like to add to this? Very insightful. He's gonna go back and work the technical side behind the scenes. So, it never says when Atlantis sinks. I'm just realizing that. When does Atlantis sink? I guess it happened during what's about to happen next. Right, so Thoth and the Nakals land on here, and then the shift happens when humanity would lose all of its consciousness. And because we were all stupid and being reset, we and the planet were sucked into a void for 3.5 days. Except, again, for the people who were on the ship. They were fine, and so they got to retain their memories, whereas at the time in the void led to humans losing all of their memories. And I guess at this point, Atlantis sunk. I'm going to assume that at this point in time, humanity was kind of just plopped around, and we just kind of had to figure things out. At this point in time, we were all just barely sentient Neanderthals again. And after that, the 3 amigos all went their separate ways. Thoth took 1/3 of the Nakals, and they went over here to the Island of the Sun in Bolivia. Ra took another 1/3 of the Nakals, and they went to Egypt. And then Aragot took the remaining 1/3 and went to Tibet. And they just kind of hung out for a while. He is inspecting the board to make sure everything is accurate. I hope it's to your liking, Professor. Okay, he seems to be approving. That's very nice. Now, at the time, I guess this is buried now, so we can just get rid of that. So at this point in time, as humanity was slowly figuring out society, Thoth and the other Nakals and Thoth's son, what the fuck was his son even named? Tat. Thoth, the Nakals, and Tat all lived in an underground complex that was one building the size of a city underneath the pyramids. This is important. Once humanity started to understand the basics of society, forming places like Egypt and Sumer in Mesopotamia, Tat and a couple of the Nakals formed what was called the Tat Society, where what they would do is they would just kind of watch people And then once they found someone who was just a little bit more special, a little bit more psychically linked, a little bit just smarter, just a little bit better than everyone else, they would go to them and say, hey, here's how this technology works, like basic agriculture or inventions and that sort of thing. And this would help humanity kind of get back to its footing over the course of a couple thousand years. Yeah, these cultures, Egypt, Sumer, they never discovered anything stupid. It was the bird god that told them what to do. By the way, did you know that the Egyptians had cool orgasm magic? Okay, I'm gonna have to draw a diagram for this. Basically, when you release a whole bunch of energy from down here, and it goes up your body, in your head, and then just kind of disperses, and that's the end of it. But what the Egyptians found out is that they kind of get it up to like here. I'm gonna make it nice and thick. They get it up to like here, and then they let it shoot out from there. Kind of goes around and back down. And when they shoot it out, it kind of splashes out like that. And that, like, super energized them. They went full Kaioken when they did that. And that, my friends, is the origin of the symbol of the Ankh. At this point, I was planning on making a joke about the character Anka from Animal Crossing, but Professor Rascal here simply said that he would walk if I dare do such a thing to his queen, as he called her.
I will not have my soulmate's name sullied by your degenerate filth.
Look, buddy, it's not my fault that a bunch of people turned your waifu into a whore. Look, see, he's pawing at it. He wants Anka. Look at this. He's instinctively drawn to it. That is actually kind of weird. Why are you drawn to the Ankh, Rascal? Are you trying to do the orgasm magic? Professor Rascal, please, we have to remain on topic here. Now, like I said, that whole consciousness shift downwards led to us losing all of our memories and our psychic powers, except for the Aboriginals in Australia who are still kind of psychic. But once again, the Nakals and Thoth, Ra, and Aragot were teaching us all of this stuff. However, this led to us accidentally interpreting them as gods, because we were simple, stupid humans at the time. But don't worry, the High King of Atlantis, Thoth, had a plan for that too. He got 2 of the Nakals. Oh, it's gotta be dark blue, not purple. Thoth had 2 of the Nakals, I and Tia, do spiritual sex, blur that by the way, to create a higher level offspring, but not quite like the next step up, the first pharaoh, Akhenaten. And we'll draw him like that. Ooh. Akhenaten would do 2 things. Firstly, he would try and get people to understand that there is only one god, and secondly, he would attempt to teach people how to become Nakals. And neither really worked out for him. The first one got him killed, and while he did manage to get 300 people to become a little bit more enlightened, they weren't quite Nakal level. They were just enlightened humans. Okay, now we get to go back to the map. The humans were all over the place. You had the Nakals down there. And now we've got a new faction. Oh shit, I erased some of Thoth. This new faction that was kinda a little bit beneath these guys, I'll draw them down there, were the Esthers. I think, is that how you pronounce it? Essene, they were the Essene. At about the same time, Thoth went to Greece, picked up Pythagoras, brought him to the pyramids, and taught him about ancient geometry. Wait a minute. Wasn't Thoth? Thoth was here. I just realized Thoth was here, Ra was here. How did Tet get from there to there? Whatever, I guess they just moved. Fuck Bolivia, I guess. I literally just realized that now. Including the most sacred of sacred geometry, the dodecahedron. Even just speaking its name in ancient Greece would get you killed on sight. I'm not gonna draw it. I was considering drawing it, but I'm not gonna do it because I don't want to, get arrested in Greece. But also, basically, it's 5 shapes which are linked to 5 elements of nature. Water, earth, fire, air, and mana, I think he calls it. It's a video game term. It's either mana or ether, one of those 2.
And the dodecahedron was ether. Ether, also known as prana, and tachyon energy are all the same thing.
And then you got the void up here, and spirituality in the middle, and look at that, it's the shape of the universe again. Cool. So back to the Essene, they left Egypt and went out into here. Bouts. And there are 2 very important members of the Essene. Their names were Mary and Joseph. Yep, we're bringing my god into this shit now. So, Mary and Joseph had a kid, and his name was, back then, Joshua Ben Hur. Does this count as making a graven image? I'm just gonna do it. God knows I'm this is educational. Now, what's funny is that would not be Jesus' name. The Joshua part is probably accurate, but his name wouldn't be Ben-Hur, because last names weren't really a thing back then. His name, realistically, at the time would have been something along the lines of Joshua, son of Yosef, of Nazareth, which means, yes, you degenerate anime weebs, he would be a JoJo. Shut up. By the way, the word Christ is derived from the word Kristalla, which is derived from those 7 sounds of creation. Ka, Ra, Ya, Sa, Ta, Ha, and La. So it's just the first letters of all of them, then Ah. But then, here's the fun part. If you do that, right, you take that first half, you get Christ, right? Here's the cool thing, watch this. You take the second half, Allah. Christ, Allah. Christianity and Islam both derived from the stupid crystal shit. And yes, by the way, crystals are also important. After humanity was able to just barely make it to Christ consciousness in time, Thoth, Ra, Agarat, Tet, I erased him, but he's there too, and the Nakals all decided to take a step back from everything. I think the Asine are too, I'm not entirely sure. But they all decided to take a step back from everything and just kind of go on into the next plane of reality. Thoth was the last to leave because he wanted to keep an eye on things to make absolutely sure everything worked out. And when it was time for him to leave, he appeared before a man. This man's name was Drunvalo Melchizedek, and Thoth appeared before him and imbued him with his memories and knowledge of sacred geometry. And with that, it's time to wave goodbye to Thoth and Ra and Agarat, or Aragot, and the Nekal, and there you have it. I think the Asine is still around. Now you may notice something. Hold on a second. What about the Martians? Well, it's simple. They're still around. The Martians simply assimilated back into society and became the 13 richest families in the world. From there, they went on to rule the world from behind the scenes, actively making life worse for all of us, only to fill their pockets and fulfill their bottom line. You know what they say about broken clocks? Alright, any questions? Perfect. Thank you all for attending this ceremony. Fuck it, whatever. Haha, what a bunch of crazy stuff that was, huh? That Jordan D sure is a goober. It would really be a shame if Jordan did something really bad. Am I big enough to have to worry about getting sued? It's probably better safe than sorry. On February 24th, 2017, a WordPress blogger by the name I the Ghost would make a post titled, "I was raped." Not just going over the encounter, but also how the justice system failed her. I'm not gonna go too into detail because it's a genuinely heartbreaking story, but what matters is the recording that she included with it. See, as part of the trial proceedings, the victim had to make contact with the aggressor and record their conversation. She goes over the process of getting to the point where she's able to confront him, recorded the whole conversation, where he admits to it multiple times, by the way, and after he somehow still got off scot-free, she uploaded the recording onto the internet. And it didn't take long for people to realize, hey, that voice sounds familiar. Yes, it was Jordan. He would confirm this in an open letter to her that he posted, which has some very interesting wording. For example, he says, "You and I were together for over a month before discussions of intimacy came up. We had talked openly about sex and sexuality and had a comfortable space being with each other," which is, in my opinion, incredibly manipulative wording. Yes, they were together in the sense that they were physically near each other because they were on a road trip together as friends. All along the way, Jordan was making moves on her, which she repeatedly denied. For a month. Now, you can argue he said, she said, or more accurately, she said, he didn't really deny, but what is important is what Jordan said next. This is where we're getting into the weeds, so buckle up. According to Jordan himself, after a particularly rough day, the victim locked herself in her hotel room because they had different rooms, but Jordan somehow got in and asked if he could get on the bed with her. He climbed on, quote, holding her through the tears. Why was she crying, Jordan? I'll tell you why. It's because Jordan proceeded to immediately really start pushing for them to have sex right then and there, claiming that sex heals and it would be good for her. And she refused him. Multiple times. Jordan even acknowledges this. What he doesn't acknowledge is the fact that she kept saying no as it happened. I'm not gonna play the part of the call where the victim confronts Jordan because goddamn it is genuinely hard to listen to. I'm not gonna say I broke down in tears or anything, but goddamn it is genuinely hard to listen to and my heart goes out to Ghost. What I will play was Jordan's immediate response to the accusation. After hearing this woman just spill her guts out, asking Jordan why would you do this to me? Jordan's immediate response is to ask if she wanted to hang out later.
Would you be able and willing to come down to Arizona and see me when I'm down there?
Before then, saying this.
How old was I, 20? Like, a 20-year-old boy who is overcome with desire for the most beautiful woman that he's ever met. And like, I don't know if you know, like, because you've not experienced this, at least in this lifetime, but like, that particular age for men is like, they're just hormone sex machines. Like, that's the only thing that's on their mind.
But Jordan, like, I said no.
I know, and I'm trying to answer your question. I'm trying to explain how we got here from my understanding.
My God. First of all, I was 20 years old once. I never raped anyone. Second of all, don't think I didn't catch this, you little slime ball. You are not a boy at 20, you're a man, a fully grown man. And people have gone on and on like, oh, I didn't feel like an adult when I was 20, that doesn't fucking matter. If you've been on the earth for over 2 decades and you have yet to figure out you shouldn't have sex with someone who doesn't want to have sex with you, I don't know what to tell you, man, you got spiders in your brain. All this just really puts Jordan's beliefs into question. Because let me tell you, Jordan's acting like a real Martian right now. I have to assume that Thoth frowns upon rape. Obviously, if Jordan actually believed in all the shit he was saying, there's no way he would ever do something like this. Moreover, instead of actually repenting or trying to somehow find some way to make this right, he instead immediately deflects, comes up with excuses, and then later denies doing something he already said that he did multiple times. Now, of course, you can argue, how do you even begin to make right something like this? And frankly, I don't have the answers for you, but I can tell you, it's not by doing this. What happened here is what happened to a lot of cult leaders, as I said at the start of the video. He took advantage of a vulnerable person, promising to give them the world, when in reality all he did was take what he wanted. Jordan D is a textbook cult leader. On the surface, he appears to be just an eccentric guy spreading positivity and knowledge on the secrets of the universe, where in reality, he's a fucking scumbag who takes advantage of people, both monetarily and, at least in one case, physically. Spirit science is still around today, still spreading the same bullshit, but now with AI-generated thumbnails. That's nice. But there is at least a silver lining in all of this bullshit. It does seem that Jordan is not in the best of spots right now. It seems old Jimmy D spent quite a chunk of change on all those psychedelics, as he is now completely broke, left pathetically begging his fans for money as his videos tank in viewership.
But it's just difficult when that money has to go into filling in the holes of debt that I've been carrying. I really want to get past this, and ultimately I have to ask for help in order to make that happen.
It seems most of the spirit scientists have decided to move on, and frankly, God bless them. And what I can only assume was a final hurrah and a desperate attempt to get more attention so we can afford more cactus drug, Jordan would claim that the ghost of Charlie Kirk came to him and told him that he learned in the spirit world that many of his beliefs were wrong.
Oftentimes, his dialogues or his debates and his whole thing was having fights with people and challenging people, and it was very conflicting in its nature. And one of the things that he told me was he was amazed about how my energy was more about just lifting up the light of the souls within, rather than I'm right and you're wrong kind of thing. In fact, he said very specifically, and I had to write this verbatim, he said, a lot of the things I believed in were not correct because everything is so much more expanded and connected.
And there is more nuance in a lot of the conversations that he was having.
And listen, right, whether or not you agree with Kirk on his stances, this is fucking insane. Hey everyone, don't worry, the ghost of Hitler came to me last night and told me he regretted everything. Unfortunately for Jordan, it, didn't seem to work. And that's the story of Jordan D. It seems the cult is gone for good, supported only by viewbots and the occasional sucker. And as far as cults are concerned, that's like best case scenario. I hope you learned something from this, little Jimbo. No, not that humanity is descendants from Atlanteans who were experimented on by alien races, but to be wary of people like Jordan D. If one person claims to have all of the answers and, can't do things like walk on water, give him a second thought. And while that may be a bitter pill to swallow, the spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down is that there are genuinely good people out there. You just have to train yourself to have that discerning eye, to tell the difference between people who are trying to take advantage of you and people who are genuinely trying to help you. It might be hard to believe after a story like this, but there are good people out there. Trust me. Oh, and also if a guy says that Jews are time travelers from the future, you probably shouldn't listen to him either. I'm Sir Strongman, and that was the thing.